Chief Executive Officer of Claiborne Education. And I always say this about him. He's a very humble man. One of the mental giants in this community. I was hyping you yesterday as a mental giant.
Oh, gosh.
In this community. I know you don't like to hear this, but you are legitimately able to talk about anything. You were in the Marines?
Yeah.
You're a rocket scientist?
I was a plasma physicist. Yeah, I worked on,
Okay.
Worked at NASA briefly, yeah.
Is it a rocket scientist for a layman like me?
Yes, that's perfectly.
Okay. Rocket scientist, okay. Now he's in the private sector as the CEO of Claiborne Education. That's making moves left and right. I love this guy. Give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching. I am retweeting this on 13 Twitter platforms as we speak right now. We're going to spend an hour with a gentleman that I think needs absolutely no introduction, but still I'm going to do the introduction because he is an undoubted asset to this community. Chairman of the Community Investment Collaborative?
Collaborative, yep.
The chairman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also chairman of Better Future Foundation. Yeah.
What? Come on, just rattle them off for me real quick.
CFO of 8 Hats Digital. That's really my 4 main responsibilities.
And a husband.
And a husband,
Maybe
yeah.
number one.
My wife says I'm the best husband, so I don't know what that means.
She says you're the best husband out there?
Yeah.
Wow, that's high praise. My wife doesn't always say that about me.
Yeah, we've only been married 6 months, though.
Okay, and we have a kid, and we've been doing this for years. Okay, wait till you get the kid and been doing this for years.
Yeah. It changes the whole ballgame.
It changes the ballgame. All right, guys, we're going to have a lot of fun, as you can tell. Before we start the program, we're already laughing and having a good time. I see folks that are watching in Louisiana. I wonder what influence that is. I think that is my friend Lee Elberson right here. We got folks in Tennessee on the heat map, folks in Richmond, Northern Virginia, Charlottesville, Crozet, Almora, Fluvanna. I see you, North Carolina and South Carolina as well. Guys, give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching. A like and a share now. That's the only thing we ask of you when you watch this program. Just hit the like button and share it. That would mean the absolute world to us. This is going to be a fantastic show. Scotty Williams. ¿Qué pasa, Scotty Williams?
Scotty Will, my man.
Noelle Coombs.
Yeah.
You know Noelle?
Yeah, she works at Claiborne. She's great.
Noelle, hello. Jonas Smith, hello. Sam Mathery, hello. Food Guy, hello. Welcome to the broadcast. Gene Titchery, hello, and welcome to the broadcast. Patrick Robbins, hello. Debbie Matalavaga, hello. Welcome to the broadcast. Like it and share it, guys. We will start in T-minus 15 seconds. Judah Wickower, my friend, my pal, my comrade, my brother, my family. We are in your hands, my friend. Good Thursday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Live Seaville show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We're live in Charlottesville, in Central Virginia, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Live Seaville network, presented and powered by Crazy Fast Internet, Ting Fiber Internet. Judah Wickower is our director, and I'll tell you the guest on today's show, Lee Elberson. I've been excited since last week when we were texting back and forth about lining this interview up. A mental giant in the community. Yes, he gets a little embarrassed when I say this, but he's a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
It's true.
A rocket scientist.
Sort of.
A CEO of
Definitely.
Claiborne Education. The chairman of the Community Investment Collaborative, the CFO of 8 Hats.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Which one did I miss?
The chairman of the Better Future Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, helping under-resourced students at Charlottesville High School.
This guy gives back a tremendous amount of his most precious commodity, his time, to this community in volunteer fashion, helping small and medium-sized businesses, helping entrepreneurs who are looking to get in the business game. He is a tremendous sounding board and resource. If you want to give props, if you want to give some perspective, share with Lee Elberson, put it in the comment section. I will relay your props on air. Props like Quentin Beckham. Hello, Lee.
Oh, Quentin, yes.
Quentin Beckham says, of all my spouses, you're my favorite. Scotty Williams says, Lee Elberson does it all. Beth Richmond Hyder says, hello, friends. Judah Wickower loved that joke right there from Quentin Beckham. Is that what it was over there? Judah Wickower's our director. We love to get him in the mix. Oh, Judah's going to talk here, Lee.
Oh.
Quentin's the man.
Quentin Beck, QB is the man. We
Yeah,
love
he is.
QB on this program. All right, so why don't we start open-ended? State of the Union for Charlottesville and Central Virginia from a man who knows the community inside and out. What's Lee Elberson's State of the Union here?
Whew. All right. So I think it's always best sort of to start at the top and think about like what has this last year done. So I think about basically what it's done to consumer. I think consumer spending habits is in my mind what's really shaped a lot of the changes that we're seeing. What is this virtual work presence done? And looking at now as, we're seeing the vaccine rollout being very successful. I think Blue Ridge Health District moved to 1C today. And so as we're looking towards the future, thinking about how close to normal are we going to return back to? Or is there a normal to go back to? And, there's obviously some commercial real estate implications. There's certainly like what's happening in the education system. And honestly, from a business standpoint, okay, vaccines are rolling out. They're considering rolling back mask mandates. What, as a small business owner, what can I expect in the next year? Sure, this summer will probably be booming, but after that, is my business still going to be successful? So those are the sort of lenses I think about, primarily education and businesses, but I think a lot of this is shaped by consumer spending habits because that's really what's happening in our economy. So I think consumer spending habits have changed probably for the worse for our local businesses because I know I personally have been spending a lot of time on Amazon. I buy screws and washers on Amazon instead of going to Martin's Hardware, and that's to buy something for $2. I really should be going to Martin's and supporting our local community. And I think that change might stay, which means that local businesses are going to have to change their strategy. And what would have been a long-term strategy, maybe a slow growth curve to virtual spending, has just been escalated dramatically. And so now we're in the wake of that, trying to figure out how to recover. So.
Jamie Dimon, CEO. JP Morgan Chase says yesterday he expects the economic boom in this country to trickle into 2023. We've all made this allusion or this correlation to the Roaring '20s as we get out of COVID. Let's not all forget that the Roaring '20s closed with a massive depression and recession, so let's not hope that's the case. Let's hope it's the good part of the Roaring '20s. Consumer spending, consumer confidence. Americans notoriously are bad at saving money. However, over the last 13 months and change, savings with families at all-time high. Once we get back to whatever this new normal is, can we not expect that the savings, the lack of credit card debt, we've paid that debt down. For 14 months, we've been quarantining. We haven't been going to happy hour. We haven't been going out to dinners because of fear. Can we not expect that that money is going to go very quickly back into local economies, certainly the Central Virginia one?
Definitely. And I think that on the surface seems like a good thing, but as any business owner will tell you, it's much better to have a slow and steady stream than to have just a massive amount of business crammed in because you have capacity issues, you have staffing issues, and then if you're not going to sustain that, what do you hire, 50% more people and then be prepared to lay them off in September as this eases up? So yeah, I think it's going to be really tricky for business owners, and I know that we're worried about that at Claiborne, and I know many businesses are worried about that too.
Claiborne Education, CEO, how's the firm doing?
Man, tough. It was a tough, basically the entire last year. We had a boom last summer. I think that there was a lot of concern about what was going to happen as we were rolling out of the end of last year in virtual schooling, and so a lot of parents were doing prep last year. But as we moved into virtual schooling, I think there wasn't the same felt need for tutoring and support because by and large there was grade inflation and it didn't look like students were doing bad. Now we realize there's tremendous learning loss, as they say. So I think next year is going to be booming, but we were running super lean for about 6 months. I mean, just skeleton crew, and we unfortunately had to lay off one person, which I guess is a good thing for a staff of 20 to only have to lay off one person. But now we're starting to see that rise again, and I think next school year we're going to see a massive rise in basically private education support. So independent tutors and companies like Claiborne.
A lot of questions coming in. I'm going to get to the questions here in a matter of moments. Darren Piscotti.
Pashota, he's my cousin. Yeah, he's in California.
He's watching in California.
Watching in California. It's 9:30 in the morning there. So
he's got a question for you. You have 7 states watching you right now. 7 states here, much of Charlottesville and Central Virginia as well. All right, State of the Union, Charlottesville and Central Virginia. You gave it from a business and economic mindset. How about State of the Union, Charlottesville and Central Virginia from boots on the street? The temperature of what you're hearing from people saying, feeling. We got an election around the corner. We got a downtown mall that has a 20-25% vacancy right now. In a strong economy, that vacancy rate is below 1%. You go down Route 29 and you see 4 lease signs in all the buildings. You go to 5th Street Station, see 4 lease signs in all the buildings. I talk to my friends that are restaurant owners like Peter Castiglione, the owner of Maya Restaurant. He says, Jerry, I can't find people to take jobs. We're hiring. We can't find people to take jobs. We have a lot of trends that we need to unpack. One of the trends I think we need to unpack is what's the value of commercial real estate moving forward? How are landlords going to respond to tenants that need a break in price to stay in the unit? Or will they not offer the break in price? Here's another one. Has human behavior changed over 14 months in that so many people got economic stimulus and or unemployment to not work? Are they now unwilling to go back, get on the stick, and start grinding? Anywhere you want to go here, Lee Alberson. It's real talk on this show.
Kind of opened up the world there. Well, let's start with the last one. So I think almost certainly 14 months is sufficient to change our behavior. I think the stimulus and the capital injection in the economy, I don't think that is going to be a long-term effect. I think in about 6 months we're going to see people return to the workforce as the funding channels are starting to die down, and we're starting to have more confidence in the economy restoring. So I think that's just temporary. The commercial real estate, I'm lucky I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know some great people in real estate. Quentin is one of them.
This is my business.
Of course, you too.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Herndon, she's another one. And it sounds like there's maybe facing an existential crisis. And I think this is probably what everybody's worried about is as we have moved more to virtual, let's start with businesses. Businesses are likely never going to return to the same amount of in-person activity that they had. Microsoft did this really fascinating work from home study, and then that was that 70% of employees wanted to work from home. 60% of them also wanted to be able to work from the office. That adds up to more than 100%.
So it's a hybrid situation.
So what does that mean? Yeah, so that means we're going to probably relax back to some hybrid, with the exception of some industries, which means that that businesses renting space likely won't need the same amount of total footprint. Probably has other implications in terms of business travel. Does it make sense to send one of your employees to California for a 2-day conference or something, or does it make more sense for them to just zoom in? And so that means less airfare, less tourism dollars coming in. And so I honestly think that I think that commercial real estate has probably changed permanently.
Ooh.
I just don't see it returning. I think there probably will be a bump. We're all ready to get out. I want to be back in the office. But at some point I'm going to think, I kind of like these asynchronous Fridays, as the kids call them, right? It's the day I'm just going to work from the house, kind of, maybe do laundry, multitask. And so I think that's going to persist in the business industry. And so I think that is going to mean there's going to be less desire for commercial real estate in that less employees are going to be filling the buildings to capacity.
A lot of comments coming in. I'm going to relay some of these on air. Quentin Beckham. Unemployment, Quentin Beckham says, unemployment is still a very real issue for certain job segments, service industry, for example, and have strongly impacted women and people of color in particular. What would be the business you would start today that would fuel jobs for those demographics and also have a demand, make money, that is accessible in a post-vaccine world?
Well, the great question, Quentin. Yeah, I think, last year we were worried that unemployment was going to hit like 30%, right? There was people speculating, oh my gosh, it's going to be that. It wasn't that bad. I think it was like 15 or 16%, which was still
Substantial.
4 times higher
Right.
than it was last February. It was like 3 or 4% or something. So I think that is a major issue. When talking about getting jobs for under-resourced individuals, I think this is why we're starting to see a lot more work about diversity, equity, and inclusion in nonprofit organizations, in for-profit organizations, and there's just a lot more visibility because we've realized how hard minority and under-resourced communities have been hit. And I think one of the best things that we can do is inject money in the community and helping them start their own business, right? If an under-resourced person has that vision to start a business, then we need to remove some of the red tape in terms of capital investments. This is what CIC does. CIC had a landmark accomplishment in February. We got our CDFI approval, so we're now a community development financial institution.
So you're a lender.
We are a lender. We've always been a lender, but now we have the backing of not only the federal government, but there's a lot of private capital in these CDFI funds. And so this is going to get injected directly into Charlottesville. And so there's going to be a lot of building of helping individuals build their own business. What does this mean for big companies looking for work? It means there might be some competition. Means it might not be as easy to find employment and to find employees as it was before. But yeah, I think that will be a trend that will relax in about 6 months.
Quentin Beckham says, what would be the business you would start
Yeah.
today that would fuel jobs for those demographics, people of color, women, and also make money in an accessible post-vaccine world? You know what? The first one I would do? I would leverage, much like I'm doing here, social, digital, and mobile to create a brand in a video and podcast setting. And when you have the connection and the brand established, and when you have the viewership and the listenership in place, then you could start positioning call to action messages in front of those viewers and listeners. Perhaps it's a call to action message, and I'm not doing this now. In fact, I'm going to give this to you afterwards, where you're selling a branded product on your platform. And what you have done is you've created an entrepreneurial business that you can do from anywhere in the world as long as you have an ISP. The barrier of entry is not that high. You're not signing a 10-year lease with escalator clauses. You're not putting your house on the line to get that lease. You're not having to purchase massive amounts of product, hire a hell of a lot of people. And this business concept works in a post-vaccine world, in a post-COVID world, in a pre-COVID world. And as long as these things stay ubiquitous, the business concept stays at the top of people's mind. There's one right there. You don't have to be rich to do it. You can be a man, you can be a woman, you can be a person of color, you can be white. The beautiful thing about the internet, it's the democratization of entrepreneurship.
I agree with that to some extent. I think there is still a certain amount of technical capital that is required to run something like that. And I think, by and large, when you're looking at under-resourced communities, you need to look at where the technical skills lie and the experience that they've had. And so, if I look at what CIC businesses do, there are a lot of service-based businesses such as hair salons and mobile detailing and things that people have probably had experience and developed expertise in their life. So, let's start with hair salons. I'm going to just give that as a simple example because that seems like a great post-COVID business because people have been sitting on Zoom with their wife cutting their hair and it looks great. My wife did a great job cutting my hair.
It looks fantastic, man.
Well, this is actually professional. This is CIC business.
Okay, Mrs.
Yes.
Elverson, she did not do that?
She didn't do this one. Hers were great. Alex, my wife, she was more nervous, I think, than anything. So this is a CIC entrepreneur, Vonda Sistrunk. She's great.
When someone has scissors or clippers next to your ear and your eyeballs and their hands are shaking from nerves, you're not concerned right there?
That's why I was trying to calm her down and be like, babe, you got to hold your hand steady, okay? You're about to chop my ear off. So, I would think about how do you support business, how do you support them? Like, let's say they don't want to start a business, right? Like, that's my mind is always being entrepreneurial. They're like, look, I just want to cut hair and I need an easy way to do that. So maybe these co-working spaces, maybe this is the way to do it. Like you said, maybe this is the way to get real estate involved and say, how can we minimize the amount of things that they need to do? There's places like, I think Phoenix Salon does this, but say, here, you're just going to pay us this. Here's your rent. Here's your internet. You do this in some of your spaces, right? Here's everything you need to get started, and then you're just gonna cut hair, which is what you're good at. And maybe you have a client list. Maybe you have a walk-in. That's what I would think about. Is how can you facilitate those sort of trades that are very very prevalent in the under-resourced community. That way, you're not retraining, and it's something that they're passionate about, and it's a job they're likely to stick with.
We have, you brought this up, we have 27 executive offices. And I was freaking terrified once COVID hit, what the impact it would have on these executive office spaces. What happened was the Class A 10-year leases, massive open layout, sexy space with the glass and the glamour and all the glitter, they were the most exposed and vulnerable. It created a trickle-down impact or trickle-down effect, and the executive office space where you can close the door, you can go into a room, you're not in an open office setting with massive cubicles and people all around you, those are booming in demand. So I think the commercial game, you talk real estate, from an office standpoint, is going to be potentially changed forever around let's cram as many people as possible into a cubicle city, to an open layout, and people are going to insist upon privacy or an opportunity to breathe air that only they're breathing, to take a mask off with the door closed behind them. I also think that an entrepreneur that is focused on businesses associated with ISPs, internet service providers, are going to have the most success. What businesses in this 14-month period that we called COVID were able to stay online? Netflix, Peloton, Amazon, I Love CVille Network. And it's because we were associated with a cord you plug into the wall that could be done anywhere. So if I was answering that, and I'll throw it back to you, I learned from you, you're the mental giant, I'm just the lowly host over here. If I was throwing this advice to anybody, I would say prioritize ISP experiences potentially over in-person experiences, because we don't know if there's a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th variant around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's contingency planning, and I think that's probably at the top of everyone's mind, right? Uh-huh. Is, originally maybe we thought we're going back to normal. Great, we're vaccinated. This will never happen again, or will it? Right? And so I think that's expertise is. I think offering something virtually if you can is extremely important. Again, we were lucky at Claiborne on March 13th when right after UVA shut down, we went 100% virtual, and we were prepared for that. If we had not been, there would have been probably a 1 or 2 month downtime as we had to train for that. And so, now going back to it, like you said, if there is an option for people to do a service virtually or in person, here's an interesting question. Do you charge a premium for the in-person? Or do you charge the same amount? Because
you charge a premium for the in-person.
Yeah?
You absolutely have to.
You're almost dissuading people from meeting in person again, and you're missing out on that socialization.
This
right?
is why I love you here. Okay, let's play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show.
Yeah.
In-person commerce has much higher overhead associated with it than digital commerce. In-person commerce, you got to pay a rent. You got to pay a mortgage. You need staff. You got to train the people. You got to tell them what to do. They got to wear a uniform. You got to have insurance. You got to pay the lights, the electric. Digital commerce, it's only waste up. I do some of these interviews.
Still got to do training. You got software costs. You got software training.
I do some of these interviews in my tidy whities. You probably didn't want to hear that. Did you?
I did not want to hear that.
You didn't need that visual.
I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head.
You didn't need that visual.
Terrible.
Don't you think the in-person is a hell of a lot more from an overhead standpoint than the digital, or you disagree?
I think it's industry dependent. You know, in thinking about us, it is definitely more expensive for in-person. You got to staff it, right? You got to clean it, things like that.
How about your rent?
Yeah, you got to pay rent.
Did you get can I ask a tough question?
Yeah.
Did you get a rent break?
No. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, our landlord, he's a small business owner too. We had a straight up conversation with him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a small business owner too, and there's really nothing we could do." We approached all of our landlords and said, "Hey, what can you do?"
And none of them said.
None of them gave us. Well, one of them, our Space in Richmond, gave us a break. They're a big company, big real estate company, and they actually came to us and said, "Hey, we're going to give you 3-month break, but then we're going to finance the rest of it over." So we only got a delay. We didn't get any free rent.
And did they push that rent to the back end of the lease? Because that's what a lot of landlords are doing. They're saying you don't have to pay for, say, August, September, October, just talking out loud. But that 90-day period, we're going to tack on to the back because we still want our taste.
Yeah, they did. They just basically they took a 1-year lease, for instance, and then just financed over the course of 9 months. So yeah, we just paid a little bit more. We paid a little bit more of the 9 months. So they didn't lose out over the course of the year. They didn't lose out on any rent. Their break was giving us a delay in that payment. So no, we didn't get any breaks from any of our landlords in terms of free. Now we did get PPP funding, so government helped us out a little bit with that, but.
Is the stimulus money, I mean, we have some folks from a stimulus standpoint have gotten what? Close to 4K?
Mm-hmm.
Free money from the government?
Individuals, yes.
Individuals, close to 4K, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a rough estimate.
Yeah, with kids, more.
Yeah, with kids, more.
Maybe 10,000 if you
right.
know how many kids you have. Yeah.
Over 10K with kids, depending on how many kids you have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even more than that if you have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're that farmer that's producing babies so they can work the farm, you were probably sitting pretty during COVID, right? Then you got a ton of unemployment.
Yeah.
That's come out. Has human behavior changed? And it changed the mindset of getting on a stick and grinding. Why are our colleagues that are business owners saying we can't find anybody to hire? Why is that happening?
Yeah, I think that I don't know if the unemployment or the funding is the only cause for the change in behavior. I think that there's a lot of concern with the confidence of meeting in person and exposure risk. I think that's certainly playing into it. I don't think the individual stimulus checks really provided that much security. You got one check. Great, Jerry. You can make it an extra month. I mean, if you're running a household, that doesn't make you feel that good. I mean, you breathe easily, but then the next week you're starting to worry about where it's going to come from.
But the unemployment payments were substantial.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So Vanessa Parkhill says this. I have a client, and Vanessa Parkhill, please correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe you are an accountant and in the bookkeeping business. I believe that's what Vanessa Parkhill says. I have a client who needs laborers. They're having trouble getting responses to their ads. It's physically demanding. I'm afraid there's a certain segment of the population who may be choosing to ride the unemployment wave and possibly work under the table to fill in the gap before going back to their regular job. Sad face emoji.
Yeah, but I believe that's a temporary problem, right? At some point, unemployment can't sustain like this. Something is going to break. So maybe it breaks and maybe it slows down in 3 months and 6 months. So it's a temporary problem. And so I guess what we're thinking of is what do we do in the next let's say it's 6 months. What do we do in that time period until people start getting back out and start feeling more confident to work in the workforce? You know, if you're a small business owner, you know, I guess you A and B test it. Do you have to pay more, right? That's more out of the pocket of the business. Maybe you can't afford that. So I don't know what the right solution is to that. There's just a labor shortage, and that means as a business owner, you either, you scale back your business or you change your model, right?
Has the mood shifted, changed, been adjusted at all when it's come to launching a business thanks to COVID? This is what I would think. You're much more connected than I am when it comes to entrepreneurs. okay? The clients I'm working with, often small to mid cap, right? We're talking clients that are doing, $500,000 to $25 million. Okay, so I would think, because of COVID, and a lot of it I'm relating to my experiences. My business is 13 years old in May 31st. We launched this business in 2008 in a housing recession, okay? I remember this recession feeling the need to get empowered with my finances and how the money was coming in and the control that I wanted to have with generating income. Now, unfortunately, for 6 months, I had no clients and was pretty much, stealing food from a buffet, Panna Garden, when they weren't looking. Literally, that's what how I was eating. I was scraping food into a Ziploc bag from a buffet, okay? And I did that went there once or twice a week, and they said, "We see what you're doing, sir. We see what you're doing." But that's what I could do. Do what you got to do. So I would think that the folks are more inspired or influenced or encouraged to launch businesses now because over a 14-month period, potentially their employer had to shut down because of circumstances they couldn't control, a virus that was in the air that we didn't know anything about. Is that a safe statement to say? Or are people fearful to launch the business now?
I think, looking at it from a statistical standpoint, I think applications to CIC's workshop were down, which...
That's a good barometer.
Yeah, that probably means that there's less, so think about the logic of it. It's like, I'm working for Jerry. Jerry had to lay me off because he's not sure how his business is going to do. Is your first inkling to say, I'm going to start my own business? It's like, wow, maybe I do it better than Jerry, maybe I don't, right? So I think that if you're struggling pulling in resources from your current employer, the idea of starting your own business, I think that there's more fear there. And
really?
Yes.
So you think the entrepreneurial spirit may have been diminished because of this 13, 14-month period we call COVID?
Yes.
Dang.
And it's also a lot of the businesses that are starting off are business that you would maybe start at the farmer's market. Hey, I'm producing some baked goods. The farmer's market attendance was down, and so how do you
Well, the farmer's market now is a digital drive-through market.
Yeah.
It's almost an oxymoron. A digital farmer's market. Parting is such sweet sorrow, Lee Elberson.
I think, but the Ix farmer's
it's killing
market
it.
is killing it. Yes, because
they privatized the farmer's market. That's what they did.
Yeah.
Ludwig Kutner privatized the farmer's market and took it out of local government's control and privatized it, and now he's crushing.
Yeah. Because that's, from a business standpoint, I think, I don't know the number specifically. I would say the drive-through farmer's market has seen significant decline. Because
definitely.
The idea behind a farmer's market is it's a very organic interaction. You don't want to plan 48 hours in advance what you're going to get. You want to show up and say, wow, those are some cool looking zucchini. Oh, great.
You get your cup of coffee and walk around.
Yeah, that's some eggs. Oh, these are some bagels. I'm just going to buy this sort of ad hoc, and that's that very organic experience. If you have to plan 48 hours in advance what you're going to pick up, it's like, well, that takes all the fun out of it.
That's Amazon.
Yeah, exactly, right. I can do that.
A digital farmer's market is Amazon.
Well, I can do that Whole Foods delivery, and Whole Foods will deliver same day.
To your doorstep.
To my doorstep.
And you don't have to get in the car and go to the Carver Rec Center or wherever the hell it is.
Yeah, so this is the change in consumer behavior, right? Like doing that calculus and saying, why do I want to meet in person? Because you want that those organic interactions. This is why I think the downtown mall is going to start to do better, as people miss that just kind of going
human
by
connection.
storefronts, and saying, oh, look, Jerry's in the store. I'm going to go by and say hi to him, and maybe I'll buy something while I'm in there.
Brianna is watching the show in Las Vegas. She watches the show all the time. She says, you guys are not considering the value of interacting with people. We are craving this value. I think that's what we're emphasizing.
Yeah, I think that's 100% what, as adults, we're craving it. I think students have seen, I know this because the world I live in is education, is students haven't realized that missing those social interactions is a lot of their cognitive development. But as adults, we have definitely missed it. And we've just been doing that calculus this entire last 14 months saying, does it make sense for me to go out and meet somebody for beers in their backyard if we have to be socially distanced, right? It's not that same amount of fun as you used to. And so we're missing what we're going to probably have this summer, which is big barbecues. My wife and I are planning this. It's like, I'm going to have a barbecue every weekend.
Whoa, okay. So you're from Lafayette, Louisiana?
Lafayette, Louisiana, yeah.
Is Lafayette, Louisiana considered the South? That's the South, right?
They don't consider Virginia the North. Anything north of Interstate 10 is Yankee country.
Okay, well, my friend, isn't it the backyard gathering a cookout then and barbecue something we eat?
Yes.
Wouldn't they be saying that in Lafayette, Louisiana?
I've been Yankeeized is what they would say. I'm no longer a Southerner. I don't have that draw anymore.
The fabulous Cindy Elberson watching the program.
Oh, yes.
Your mom?
Heard of her, yes. It's my mom.
I literally
She's
said...
in Lafayette.
I know she is. You have 9 states on the show here. Cindy Elberson, I responded to her, I said, hello in all caps. I'm a huge fan of your son, Cindy Elberson. And Cindy says, and this is a good comment from Cindy Elberson, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree here with Lee Elberson and Cindy. She's got a brilliant comment here. She says, I'm close to retirement, and I'm very worried that the office jobs will be scarce in the future, the jobs that I know how to do. Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, the existential crisis that I think is happening in commercial real estate probably expands to the businesses that are renting those. I mean, I think that's what it manifests from, and how are businesses evolving. Like you said, we were forced to do virtual everything. Virtual everything.
Yeah.
Virtual management, virtual tutoring, and
virtual dating. You know Match.com and it rolled out a virtual video dating function? I
did. I have friends who are dating right now, and I commiserate with them because dating during COVID sounds like it's one of the most painful experiences. You're on Zoom meetings all day, and then you have to Zoom a date.
And put it in perspective here, and this is not to be vulgar, this is literally from a business mindset. Durex condom sales at an all-time low during COVID.
You know, I'm guessing there's probably a stress correlation there, right? I mean, I think we're at this precipice of being extremely stressed, and so again, looking forward, we're looking for these in-person interactions. And so, you know, let's kind of take this, how do we think the business, like what is the downtown mall going to look like this summer?
I think it's going to boom.
I think it's going to be booming. You know, another question is, as a business owner, I've been trying to consider, what should my mass restrictions be? If at some point President Biden says, we've offered vaccines to every person in the country, so those who haven't gotten it don't want it. At that point, can I just stop asking people to have to wear masks? And the people that come in and
let's go down this road.
Yeah, the people that come in and aren't vaccinated, what is my responsibility to them? At that point, masks in the last year have been a social responsibility. I mean, I don't obviously want to get COVID, but I definitely don't want to give COVID to my mom or anybody in a vulnerable population that I interacted with. Now, if all those people are vaccinated, then the person who is most vulnerable now is the person who's chosen not to get a vaccination. I told you last time we talked, I was apprehensive about it. You know, I don't like doing anything unless I know the long-term side effects, but I got my first dose yesterday.
Johnson & Johnson. For me.
Oh, you got the one shot?
I got
a Moderna, so I got to go back in a few weeks to get my second shot. But, you know, it's part of a social calculus. And so as a business owner, at what point, as soon as Charlottesville rolls back the mask mandate, as a business owner, you know, do I have to listen to clients? You know, I mean, I think you always need to do that, find out what their comfort level is. But if I can assure them that my entire staff is vaccinated, do we require masks anymore? What do you think?
Okay, I'm learning from you. I'm just the lowly host. You're the mental giant here.
You talk to everybody in Charlottesville, Gary.
I think it's going to be, is it going to be this? No shirt, no shoes, no vaccine, no service. Is it going to be, you cannot come into my bar, my restaurant, my church, my retail store, my concert venue, without showing proof of vaccination? Another question, why is the vaccine card paper? And why does it not fit in my damn wallet? Why is it digitalized that I can put on my phone? Okay, here's another question for you. As herd immunity becomes a reality, and we're getting there, slowly, we're getting there, do we then say, your point, This is a Darwinistic society. You choose not to get vaccinated, come into the restaurant, there's no mask rules, you're the one that's exposed, everyone else has got the shot in the arm. It's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get out of your way. You know I'm a libertarian. I am fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And what it really comes down to it is I don't want the government telling me what to do. That's what it really comes down to it. And
sounds like that's your campaign slogan there. Happy to hear you're running for office, by the
thank
way.
you, but that's not about that.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want to go.
Yeah. So, I think, so I think part of the problem over the last year that many business owners faced is, great, there's a mask mandate. Again, I ran a tutoring company. The calculus was easy for us. Just keep everything virtual. I don't want to have to go through the logistics of enforcement, right? People have to wear a mask. Okay, if I'm a business owner and a couple of 3 or 4 rowdy kids come in, they're not wearing a mask, then I have to
be the police.
I have to be the police and escort them out. I'm guessing a lot of business owners struggled with that. One of CSC's board members, Jason Beckton, who owns Mary Bet, says that his staff has been very great in making sure that masks have been worn, but I'm guessing that there could have been some problem areas there. So now, the vaccine card, I think, would work in a lot of other countries. I think you're going to get a lot of pushback in the southern states, right?
You're seeing it in Florida.
Yeah, don't tell. Well, Florida never really shut down.
No, and their economy is booming.
Yeah,
they are booming, right?
Definitely. That's the calculus there, right? If you're the governor, we talked about this last year. Enforcing masks and forcing businesses to be at lower capacity, you're going to hinder the local economy. You're doing it for the safety of your community. But Florida said, you know what? That people can make their own decisions, right? If they want to go out and expose themselves, that's their business.
Ben D'Alessandro is watching. Coach Ben D'Alessandro, the executive director of the Virginia Basketball Academy, the founder of the Virginia Basketball Academy. Ben D'Alessandro did one of the best pivots I've seen during COVID. He took tennis courts outside and turned them into a polar bear basketball league where kids in the Virginia Basketball Academy, because the parents were fearful of going inside a gymnasium, instead were playing 4-on-4 basketball, not 5-on-5, because the tennis court is smaller, having the parents stay outside the fence, and the kids we're doing winter basketball on tennis courts because it's do what you gotta do to survive. And Coach Ben D'Alessandro says, business owners must do what's best for their business. Business owners make the decision and the free market will dictate what's best. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that has been the case this entire time. I think businesses like mine who went through the calculus of saying, I'm just going to stay closed, instead of trying to encourage families to be in person, which we knew is better. We know in-person tutoring works better. We know kids need more social interaction. Even the parents sometimes like getting out of the house and coming and sitting down in our lobby, having a cup of coffee or whatever. But we decided not to do that just based on gauging you have to gauge your staff and you have to gauge your customers. I think now, again, that the vaccine rollout is becoming,
ubiquitous.
Is becoming ubiquitous, right? Everybody's getting it. I think there's going to be some very difficult decisions with business owners. Can I force my staff members to get vaccinated? And if one of them decides no, then do I have to ask every client, hey, are you okay working with a tutor who has not been vaccinated? If not, then now it's a lot of extra logistics. The free market is going to take care of it. That person is probably going to likely get less sessions just because the person who's vaccinated is going to get pretty much everybody. And so as a business owner, do I force them to get vaccinated? I don't think I can. So I think that is a case where the free market probably is going to take care of it.
Krispy Kreme is offering a free donut per day throughout 2021 to anyone who shows up to a Krispy Kreme and shows proof of vaccination.
Turn that COVID-19 into a COVID-20, right? Just round up, get an extra pound.
What do you make of that? Turning the vaccination into a marketing campaign to drive incremental revenue.
I think that's I think that's great. I think it's great. I wonder if
You advise business owners.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think more businesses should be doing that. I think Krispy Kreme probably is not the healthiest way to incentivize people, but I think it's a great way to incentivize. And I think the more you see leaders in our community getting vaccines, I think that the comfort level, I think in the next I think by the end of the summer, people who haven't been vaccinated are people that have some sort of internal belief against vaccinations. And I don't know if any sort of incentive is going to change them. So
Okay, let's go down that road. Tough question coming at you.
Always.
Okay, this is a tough question. There are many folks in our black and brown community that are hesitant to get the vaccination because of a long history of mistrust with the government and utilizing medicine and the black and brown community as guinea pigs to test that medicine. As a result, that mistrust is encouraging or discouraging many folks to not get vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that. And, I think something I've learned over the last several months of doing DEI work at CIC and reading books like How to Be an Anti-Racist and other such things is that it's important first to acknowledge that and say, I did not take part in that, but I'm a white male, so I've benefited in some way from those types of endeavors. And so what I need to do is to closely make sure that is not happening now. I think by and large, the COVID vaccine is not a way to do that. So how do you help restore confidence? I think a lot of that is going to be making sure to get strong leaders in the black community, advocating for this.
Evangelists
advocating for this and talking about the safety of it, because it is a health issue, right? If you don't get vaccinated, then you are going to be at a higher risk of getting it, especially if you're engaging in activities. So, yeah, I don't know how much of that I can do as an evangelist because I'm a white male, but I am always happy to volunteer and help in ways like that.
Okay, that was good. Very good answer. You handled that well. You brought up something that's been in the news cycle of late. This is real talk on this show. I mean, if you've realized, right?
You always do this, Jerry.
This is conversation that is like not fluff. It's not water cooler chitter chatter. It's like conversation that will make people uncomfortable. And we have to make people uncomfortable to have, it's the first step to progress. It's the first step to progress. You brought up racism.
Can I just daisy chain onto that for a second before
Sure.
we go down that? So I think that's very important. I think the uncomfortability, again, in reading this book, if you haven't heard of it, Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, very controversial. Rattles some of my beliefs at my core. And, I think the initial knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh, no, that's wrong. But then in sort of thinking about it, it's like, well, actually, maybe I do. I've had some racist ideas that have
you didn't even know about.
That I didn't even know about, right? You grow up thinking that's normal, and maybe you think it's normal because your parents thought it's normal and your grandparents thought it's normal. And so I think approaching that and having conversations with people of color about those, and when you get questioned about it, not thinking of racist term as a pejorative, right? Like racist, and it's like, oh, well, I had a racist idea. You're right. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I'm addressing it. And again, I think that's the big part of it, is having these conversations. And like you said, when you think about public office, right? I'm sure it was pretty tough for you to contest a seat. I think school board seats, the school board used to be tough to get people to run. Now with all the focus on education, there's going to be quite a few people running for city council and school board, and I think contested seats are great because the issues rise to the top and people are more aware of the issues. And I think having those debates is a really great thing. So back to you for your question.
A poignant perspective, my friend. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful and well said. My question was tied to racism, and you know where I'm going to go with this. Less than a month ago, our mayor made global news for a poem that was, I would say, at first look, I'm not going to go the metaphorical route yet, but first look, a cursory glance, sexually violent in its rhetoric. What did you make of the poem from the mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia?
So I think in looking, I was shocked, but when I look at this, I always try to think about it from their perspective, right? I think Mayor Walker...
From the person who wrote its perspective is what
Yes,
you're saying.
from the person who wrote its perspective. What I got out of that is frustration, right? That this is sort of the pot boiling over with frustration about the position she's in and maybe the access to resources and probably in her head what she thought she was going to be able to accomplish in that position and coming across some roadblocks. That's kind of what I got it as, is like this is a person who's very frustrated with not being able to do the things that she wanted to do. Again, I'm not supporting what she said, but I'm always trying to empathize with where did it come from. Because you've had her on the show.
Once.
Yes. She's not an evil person, right? She just is, I would say, is very frustrated. And that, it didn't look like she necessarily wanted out of her position, but it did look to me like somebody who was so frustrated, it's just like, you know what, I don't know what I can do anymore. And so, to me, that I almost thought, wow.
Exasperation?
Yeah, it's almost like, wow, sounds like you don't want the job anymore. Is the feeling I got as a citizen, And I think, I don't know if she intended it that way, but it was, it was shocking, and I think Charlottesville has had enough bad publicity, but to get brought back in that cycle, it makes it look like Charlottesville is a bad town. So I felt a shame that I had to explain to everyone why Charlottesville is a great place. People who have been here already know, they're like, oh, wow, really sorry to hear that. They can put it in context. But if you're from Tennessee and you've never
Lafayette, Louisiana.
People from Lafayette know Charlottesville is a great place because I'm up here. But like, if you're from somewhere that hasn't heard of it, right, then you don't have any context. They're like, I love Seville. Why would you love Seville? That's the place they had, right? That they have all those racists, right? That's what people are going to think of. People have all those racists there. So I think we need somebody in that position who is going to be a peacemaker and is going to help us build our community. We talked about this before. Is going to funnel all of the ideas that are coming from the stakeholders in Charlottesville and help provide real solutions for that. There's going to be a ton of frustration. Charlottesville's got a very dark history, but acknowledging that and saying yes, but are we moving in the right direction? Yes. Maybe we're not moving as fast as you want as mayor, but are we moving in the right direction? If the answer to that is no, then something needs to change. But if the answer is yes, then let's just keep being the peacemaker and let's try to bring these communities together.
What is the role of the mayor?
I think, so we talked about this a little bit. I think the role of the mayor is really to listen to all of those ideas, to be a peacemaker, and it's to be a champion for the community, right? It's you have to buffer all of the terrible things that happen. I can tell you in an organization, things always don't go swimmingly at Claiborne. I look at processes, I'm like, wow, no wonder this client is upset. They got left for like 2 weeks, nobody responded to them, right? But like, same is going to happen in a big organization. There's going to be a lot of skeletons in the closet. What you need to do is think about, okay, what can I do to improve that? I need to talk about what Charlottesville is doing great instead of exposing what we're doing poorly.
Your brother-in-law, Jared Edwards?
Jared, yeah.
Watching the program right now. He said it is a very nice place. Jared, we're going to get to these comments here in a matter of moments. Live on every social media platform possible. If you have comments, put them in the chain, put them in the feed, and I will relay them on air. Comments coming in on Instagram, Twitter as well. I'm going to throw this to you here. Let's shift to education.
Great.
Here's a comment that, to the point, okay? This is from a mom. Her name is Betsy. Betsy says, Jerry, we live in a neighborhood that's in the city, and it's an eclectic neighborhood. It's an expensive neighborhood, but all of us are not from the same level of means. My neighbor's kids go to a private school that I won't name. They were able to learn throughout the pandemic, in person and in a classroom, just like they did before the pandemic. My husband and I are a two-household working family, two-person working family. We do not have the means of our neighbors, and our kids, as a result, go to public school. Our children learned or tried to learn from home in a virtual setting. We realized immediately that this was not going to function well for our children, especially our son, who has special needs. As a result, I quit my job to stay and work alongside our children to help them learn. This has put us behind financially, and this has put our kids behind from an education standpoint because they're not learning at the clip they used to do before COVID. Please ask your guest what's going to happen as we move forward with some students of means learning in a classroom and my kids for 14 months learning at home.
Wow, that's intense. Well, first of all, I want to commend Betsy. I think, she says her kids didn't learn as well. I think her staying home and educating her kids is probably the best experience that a public school student got this year, right? She had that hands-on, plus she learned a lot about how her students process information best, and if, when they go back to in-person schooling, she'll have a much more intimate knowledge of that. It is, I can't imagine the choices she had is, do I leave them in virtual schooling and keep working two jobs, or do we suffer income loss and I do the best I can?
That's brutal.
To sort of, it's like, there's not a great, it's sort of bad or worse, and I think she chose the lesser of two evils, and I commend her for doing that. I think, I told you this last year, as soon as the pandemic hit, I said private school admissions are going to go, they're going to go booming. And they did, right?
You predicted that.
The value proposition for private schools was never higher because they didn't miss a beat. They had, the kids that we work with that went to private school, they were upset because they didn't get to see all their friends. But they learned in the classroom as they normally did. And, it just made I think what it did is it made the achievement gap that much different, because this has always been the case. If an affluent family that has resources, they have the main, most important thing, they have time, right? If you have resources, you have more time to spend with your kids, to encourage them to do well. You have resources to send them to private school, which means they already have more resources. You probably have the resources for private tutoring. And the students who were in public school, the public schools had an impossible problem. There's no way you can get an entire school's worth of curriculum digitally in 6 years. 6 years would be hard. To do it from March to September was almost impossible. Most of the teachers just weren't prepared for that. So in looking at the learning loss that's happened in this last year, I think come September, I think by and large it's going to be mostly in person. I think by that time, the mask restrictions and social distancing requirements will be low enough where pretty much all the kids can go in person.
And vaccines potentially in kids' arms.
Vaccines in kids' arms, yes. I think, according to the Biden administration, that's what they're planning on. They need this next school year to start as normal because parents have had it to hear, and the learning loss is substantial. The big question is how can you start sixth grade if you haven't really completed fifth grade? Right? Now we've disrupted the entire, curriculum from third grade to college, basically. Because if everybody is down, it's good for benchmarking purposes, but the curriculum for sixth grade has to be completely re-engineered.
Okay, how about this question? On topic right here.
Yeah.
Let's take the sixth grader you're talking about.
Great.
The sixth grader in February 2020, before COVID. He's in sixth grade, she's in sixth grade. Did the spring semester virtually. Did the fall semester, so that would be their seventh grade, first semester, digitally. And did the majority of their spring semester of the seventh grade, this semester, in this hybrid setting, right? What grade is that person in?
The 50% loss, I would say, if you're ballparking. They're in grade 7.5. They've only learned 50%.
So they're not going into eighth grade on paper.
No. With very few exceptions, we've talked about this before, the intrinsic learners, the kids who actually did learn really well virtually, and there are some, it's just a very small percentage. It's probably a few percent, 5 or 6%. So the good news is that most of the kids are in the same boat in public school. The hard part is, and this is what Rosa Atkins is trying to figure out with Virginia Learns, is, okay, so we know everybody's behind. How do we design next school year? Told you this, we should look at this as an opportunity. We've been benchmarking kids with, with Common Core, with SOLs. Is that the best benchmark for success? I don't think so. Is this an opportunity for us to go into more project-based learning? We've been talking about, trades that are most useful. How can we cultivate those trades so that students are excited to engage in their school? That's the main thing. It's not necessarily what the kids have lost in terms of education. It's the motivation loss. How do you get them excited to learn again? They probably, by and large, kids, they went to school. They were probably mildly excited about some classes. A few classes probably very excited about. Now, that motivation is just plummeted. Probably same to teachers have seen motivation loss too. So how do we restore that motivation? I don't have the answer to that.
Scott Williams watching the program right now. Scott Williams says this: I am in Tampa, Florida on vacation right now, and I cannot turn this interview off. 2 of my all-time faves absolutely rocking it right now. Scott Williams. I'm going to go the teacher route in a second. Before I go to the teacher route, I'm going to ask you the SOL question, the SAT question, and the college admission question. Teach me here. SOLs, have they been put on pause?
When at the beginning of the year, they had agreed that they weren't going to use SOLs this year. And, I think that some of the students are actually taking their SOLs. They're putting their SOLs back to see where kids are. I think it's an assessment tool,
okay,
right? Just to learn where they are. So I think that that's important because where they should have been, and now this is where they are. So maybe that's a decent enough measure of learning loss. I don't think SOLs are going to be used for graduation sufficient because most of the kids wouldn't be able to graduate.
Okay, next part of the question. Has accreditization, schools getting accredited, correct me if I'm wrong, that's been put on pause?
Yes.
So, we're not grading the schools on their performance right now, and we're not utilizing SOL, standards of learning, to determine whether a boy or girl can graduate.
True. We're in no man's land, but what's the alternative? Do you put all of these kids,
the alternative is private school. The alternative is Claiborne School.
Yeah, but...
Because you had that opportunity. Someone pitched you that, right?
Someone pitched us that, yeah. Someone asked us to start our own school, but we're talking about a small subset of the population that can afford private school and can afford Claiborne. There's a large amount of Charlottesville's population and population across the nation that can't afford private tutoring, can't afford...
What's that percentage?
Their budget. It's probably 80%.
80% can afford?
Cannot afford.
Cannot afford.
Yeah.
So 20% of the population can afford private school and or private tutoring?
Yeah, can afford can afford some sort of, I guess, not private tutoring that isn't just some kid in the neighborhood charging you $20 an hour.
Is COVID going to be the death knell in the coffin of public schooling?
No. Because public schooling is more than just, we know this, it's more than just education, right?
Students go into an antiquated building that's massive, not clean, poorly ventilated.
Structure and accountability, though.
Extremely expensive to maintain.
But it's structure and accountability. Think about it. That's one of the things that the students are lacking. So we have a bell schedule. It's like, I'm going to do this for an hour. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears. Now I'm going to do this for an hour. When we put kids in virtual schooling, that's what they struggle with. It's like, now you need to be your own bell. Right?
Devil's advocate, $100 million, school reconfiguration, City of Charlottesville. $100 million for school reconfiguration, taxpayer money, COVID-strapped budget. Where's the 100 million coming from? Devil's Advocate talk show.
Where should it come from, or where is it coming from?
All the above.
Yeah. I mean, at this stage, this is a nationwide problem. So the federal government, the states, it should go all the way to the top in terms of fixing this problem. So I think we do need public schools. Again, it's not just education, it's structure and accountability, it's socialization, all that's very important. So it should come all the way from the top. Right? Do you agree?
I do.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much that we can do as a community without. This is why we want to be in the United States. We want to have some federal support and state support, and I think that's going to be coming down. They're looking at one of the core issues in this past year that's surfaced, besides businesses struggling in the economy, is the school system, because look what it's done to the family units, right? Sorry, I missed. Rose, was that her name?
Betsy.
Betsy, yeah. So Betsy's problem is not terribly unique. A lot of parents had to make that tough decision. And so federal government's going to have to step in and help.
Throw this question to you. The temperature, the mood, the sentiment of the teachers you speak to. Teachers before COVID were underpaid, underappreciated, and undervalued. Teachers during COVID still get paid the same amount, doing a hell of a lot more work. And now there's a portion of the community that potentially sees teachers as the reason why, a portion, not me, portion, as teachers a reason why kids didn't get into school faster, in classroom learning faster.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the teachers' unions did great in terms of protecting teachers' rights, right? Teachers need.
You got the
to feel
Los
safe.
Angeles, California Teachers Union. The Los Angeles, my brother lives in Los Angeles, works for Snapchat. The Los Angeles Teachers Union said, we will not go back into the classroom and teach students until the Los Angeles government defunds the police.
There's way too much, I think, to unpack. Let's take it back to us. So I think that it's important to look at all the stakeholders and think about, we need to keep the teachers safe. The sentiment that I'm getting from teachers is that they were 100% underpaid before COVID. They did it out of passion. They love to, same way I run a tutoring company. You like to see that aha moment. That took a substantial hit post-COVID. A lot of teachers felt like imposter syndrome because they're teaching. None of the kids have their video on. None of the kids have their audio on, and you don't get that same sense of justification for why your role is important, and affirmation, like you do in the classroom of seeing the students. Even that nod, that quick little eye contact of like, oh, I get it now. That was a part of like why they did it. And without that there, I think teachers lost a lot of motivation. So that we go back to it. It's the motivation loss.
A lot of comments coming in. I will mention this comment to Lee Elberson. So you're blown up. You are phenomenal in this setting. I sincerely mean that.
Can I quickly plug? So I'm starting.
Oh, we're going to.
Yeah.
I'm going to hype it big time.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, I will hype it like more than plug.
Okay. Starting a podcast next week called The Future of Education. First guest is Juan Diego Wade. Spent his entire career, discussing education. Spent 13 years on school board, running for city council. Juan Diego for president in my mind. Just a great peacekeeper and just a great guy.
The entrepreneur and innovator in here, in my mind, is thinking, put that podcast on this network for further amplification. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's I'm gonna boom the podcast. But
All right.
before we do, I wanna throw this to you. Is there fear that COVID is going to discourage a generation of rising college students or graduating college students from getting into the teacher profession?
Definitely.
Because we're already strapped right now for teachers.
Yeah, I think 100%. The teachers and the students aren't feeling that same connection, right? If you talk to most teachers, one of the initial sparks they had is they say, oh, gosh, I remember my physics teacher, right? I was struggling so much with this, and she just connected with me so well and helped me understand this. Or my English teacher really inspired me, right? Teachers inspire future teachers. And, by and large, there's just not a lot of inspiration happening over Zoom right now, happening virtually. And so we need to get back in person. But I think this, in the grand scheme of things, 14 months doesn't seem like that long if you look at a 30-year period. But this effect is going to last decades.
14 months for an impressionable minds is a huge period.
Yeah.
I mean, I see what my kid's 3. I see what my kid can learn in 2 hours from watching his mom and dad. Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine 14 months with a brain that's still developing.
Yeah.
This is a good comment. Stephanie Rhodes. Lee, what about the kids like in Louisa County school system that still went 2 days per week? Are they in a better position?
Definitely. Yes. I think, the hybrid schooling, they obviously, they had some hiccups as they were doing it, but what's not going to be evident, you have to read between the lines of the grades. What's not evident is those long-term effects, that socialization and those organic interactions that kids have is really what inspires learning, right? Maybe they're in the same algebra class and they're like, God, algebra is so hard. Yeah, but did you know about, that made me, that lesson made me think of that baseball game we went to, right? Like making those connections, those happen very organically and really only happen in person. We are not reproducing those virtually. And so the kids who had that exposure, we're getting much more long-term benefits, even if you're not going to see that necessarily difference in the grades. Although I do think the grades probably were slightly higher, although you won't be able to measure it because of grade inflation.
Janelle Brooks. If so few people can afford private schooling, what do you think of school vouchers, Lee? So that's tough for you because this guy works in the private space as an entrepreneur. But this guy's business is in the realm of education, which is seen almost as a public utility. So you have to use both sides of your thinking when running your business. Where a guy like me lives in the private space with his businesses. Now he's choosing to enter the public space with running for Board of Supervisors. And I'm confident I can make that leap. But you have to do that leap every single day.
Yeah, it's tough. I'll tell you, running a business where you're serving a certain subset of the population, when you're serving the affluent community, which many businesses do, as an owner, what you always struggle with is, how do I give back to the community? And Claiborne offers scholarships. We have lots of volunteer programs. We started a nonprofit called Better Future Foundation. And so that's really what you're doing to me, that's what makes a truly social enterprise, is if you just go to a company and they just take your money and they deliver a great product, that's awesome. But if you pay for a service, they deliver a great product, and you feel like you're also helping the community, it's like, wow, they're taking their profits and giving back to the community. That's great. In terms of vouchers,
explain vouchers, because I would like the explanation. I'm not sure what the question is asking here.
I think what the question is asking is you could think about it most simply as like, what about offering more scholarships or even subsidized tuition for students?
So the voucher is a subsidized way to get into private schooling.
To get into private school or some private education.
That's what she's asking.
Subset. Yeah, I think that's. I believe that's what she's asking. She can correct us if I'm wrong. So
I think you're right.
Private schools like St. Anne's, they offer scholarships, but they have budgetary constraints just like anyone. So where does that money come from? I think what we need.
Is she alluding the money comes from the federal government? Or it comes from the Commonwealth, or it comes from a local government? Is that the illusion there? Is that, we should ask her. Hold on, what was it? Janelle Brooks. Is that what you were, is where does the money for vouchers for admissions to the private school, are you alluding from the government? I would think that, right?
Yes.
Where else, right?
Yeah, or do you start a nonprofit to help raise those funds, right? Some private institutions are very well funded. Harvard and Yale are extremely well funded. They've got multi-billion dollar.
UVA.
Yeah, UVA. They've got massive endowments that work from. So should that trickle down and come and help to bridge the gap? I think that's what she's getting at is how do we start to bridge this gap? We're moving in the wrong direction post-COVID. Private school is going up and public school is going down. How do we bridge that gap? And it's tough. It's very difficult with limited resources. So I'm hoping in public school, let's rethink how we're benchmarking students' success. I'm a big advocate of project-based learning. As much as I think test scores are an interesting benchmark, I think that they put unnecessary pressure on students. I know it's a weird thing to say coming from somebody who runs a tutoring and test prep company, but a project that, like if you were a student and I said, Jerry, here, you're going to come, you're really interested in tech. So let's talk about the mathematics and writing skills necessary to run a tech business, right? And then they understand the application of it. This is called goal-directed persistence, and it's something we do a lot at Claiborne. But if a student understands what the end goal is, they're a lot more likely to take care of some of the minutia of like, oh, I'm doing these exercises for this goal. But if you just tell them to do 12 algebra problems and they don't know why, they're like, this is stupid, right? Unless they enjoy math like I do.
Coach Ben D'Alessandro, vouchers raise the bar and everyone wins. Yes, vouchers from the government. Janelle offers perspective. Yes, I want to know what you think of public monies being allotted to families so they are able to choose which school they would like to attend, whether it be public or private.
Yes,
You answer that.
I'm
yeah.
100% in favor. I would love to even see more of a spectrum. Instead of it being binary, having potentially some more charter schools and some middle ground where you don't have to make such an extreme decision in the trajectory.
How is a college admissions director going to handle admissions in a post-COVID world that's a couple of months post? I mean, you don't have SOLs. You've devalued the SAT. The public schools aren't getting accredited right now. You got a stack of applications from private schools where students learn the same way. If you're an admissions director, I think the admissions director that was the admissions director when I went to the University of Virginia was Dean Blackburn. I believe it was Dean Blackburn. Dean Blackburn, that's not the admissions director now. I'm just doing a hypothetical.
Yeah.
But admissions director at any school,
Yeah.
okay, has a stack of applications from students that went to private school and has a stack of applications from students who went to public school. Is the admissions director's job to get the most talented students in the school? Or is the admissions director's job to almost use a sociologist or anthropologist mindset and say, this public school stack, while from a metric standpoint, might not look the same as this private school stack, but if we only admit the private schools, that's really going to set back a huge generation, maybe two, of public schools from getting into really good schools and colleges.
You know, Jerry, you always ask great questions. I think, you know, historically what SAT and ACT help do is it helped provide...
The barometer.
Yes.
It's like a home that's for sale. You use the comparables around the home to price the home. It's the same concept.
Yes. And I think in an ideal world, if you had a racially and gender unbiased standardized test, that would be a great benchmark to have so that you know that a kid applying from Louisiana and a kid applying from California, what their caliber is. Because the university is trying to ensure, I mean, the four-year graduation rates are something on their mind, but they want to make sure that they're positioning a student for success, much like CIC is trying to position a business for success. You want to make sure a student doesn't come in, feel overwhelmed, and then leave the first year. So in looking at that, a standardized test provided that. Now, there are there was definitely racial and gender biases that have been proven in standardized tests, but I think by and large, it's a wealth bias. If you have resources, you are going to do better on standardized tests. You're going to do better in school, your GPA, everything's going to be better. You're going to have more time. So as what college admissions officers have to think about now is college is a business. They don't do it for free. You know, UVA's trying to meet $1 billion budget a year, and so who's paying for college, right? If you have students coming from public school, how are they getting money for this? Are they all of them going to take student loans? Are you going to provide some subsidy? Now more than ever, students are going through that calculus thinking, is it worth it for me to pay $40,000 a year to go to school? Or do I just go to the small liberal arts college for $8,000 a year? And so I think admissions officers now are in a much more difficult position because they have to figure out who is going to pay. And now the data points are even more washed out because,
He's basically saying this, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going to cut to the chase. You're basically saying this stack of applications from the private school is a stack of applications that's coming from parents who could afford private school.
Mm-hmm.
St. Anne's Bellefield's $28K plus a year for St. Anne's Bellefield Academy. If they could afford $28K plus a year, what's the UVA in-state tuition?
30 something?
In-state?
I think, I actually don't know off the top of my head, yeah.
I would bet it's less than 28.
Yeah.
I would bet it's less than 28.
A year?
Yeah.
No.
For in-state?
I think it's more.
Okay.
But anyway,
Let's
somebody can fact check us.
Let's say the same. This stack of applications from a student that went to private school, their parents could afford $28K a year, whatever it is. And on top of that, they learned in a classroom. On top of that, they learned in a way that was how everyone was learning. This stack of this stack of applications is coming from kids that went to public school. Their parents may not have the economic means of this stack. And on top of that, they learned in a way that we have no way of justifying the credibility of how they learned. And the dean of admissions is hired to bring people in that will not only embody the mission of the university, but probably even more importantly, be able to write a check to cover the tuition cost.
Right. Now, I think the lens that's missing here, and one that's extremely important, I know they spend a lot of time at UVA, is that's not a very inclusive and equitable way to look at it. We know that the more diversity you have in a group, the more productive that group is going to be, assuming that you have designed your system that way. We came up with the SAT and ACT because that was a way to benchmark how successful somebody's going to be in college. Is somebody being successful in college necessarily mean they're going to be successful in the job market? Maybe, mostly to some extent, but maybe there's some changes they could make to say, if we're trying to create a diverse group of individuals, what do we need to change in our university system, and then in our benchmarking method, and then in our high school system, and then maybe it trickles down. Because I think the problem too much is that we think about trickling up. How are we preparing for this? And colleges, I think there needs to be some restructuring on putting together a student body and not it just being a financial decision. And I know that that's not the only thing that they think of with admissions, but international students usually pay a full ride when they come to universities, and so that's where a lot of the tuition revenue comes from. This last year, that was cut back. So you're going to see a lot of changes in the student body probably over the course of the next couple years as we're going through the repercussions of COVID entrance exams.
Chris, you're phenomenal. How's your time? Are you good?
No, I got time. I probably got.
We're at 1:53. Did you know it was that late?
No. Oh my gosh.
I know. A lot of folks say that when they're on the show.
Yeah. But my staff is probably watching. I think I had a meeting with one of my staff members at 1:30, but she knows that it's fine. It's Noel. Actually.
Are you okay?
Let's go for it, man.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, love it, man.
Okay, same. I enjoy you very, very much. Scott Williams, when he was on the show, he taught me this. Men need to say this to each other. I love you.
Love you, man.
He said, do it without the man.
Oh, without the man. I love you.
I love you.
Yeah, that's good. I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. I love that Scott is such an introspective guy. He runs a great business too. Got to do plug for Camp for Real.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a great activity for your kids this summer, Camp for Real is the place
Scott
to go.
Williams is the man.
Yeah.
He's the absolute man. This is from Chris, who's watching in Pennsylvania. You guys both run businesses, and it seems to me you value and believe in the free market in a competitive landscape because the cream rises to the top in that situation. I'm of that mindset. He also says, Jerry, you called education a utility, a public utility, in fact. Should education, instead of being a public utility, be more commoditized? And if it is commoditized, won't that let the cream rise to the top?
That's a great question. So commoditized probably also means to some extent privatized too, right?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
If it's commoditized.
Okay.
He's
So
basically saying, Chris, if I'm wrong here, Allentown, that education across the board should be commoditized, privatized.
you know, let's zoom back for a second. What is the ultimate goal of education, right? In the history, it's been to, I mean, it's separated classes. Actually, it's certainly separated wealth classes, also separated racial classes, which we are obviously trying to get away from. And if it's gone now to, if it's commoditized and privatized, then yeah, only the people that can find the resources necessary to purchase that commodity then would get it. So I think there needs to be some tweaking in that respect, because then
it's not equitable.
Then it's definitely not equitable. But if you find a way to do it in such a way that everyone has that opportunity.
The best teachers get paid the most because of performance. Privatizing education. You perform the best as a teacher, you get paid the most money. You're piss poor as a teacher, you're low on the pay scale.
Yeah, and how do you measure performance? Maybe it's
got to be standardized tests. It's got to be a benchmark that's common across the board.
Yeah, I mean,
take a basketball team. LeBron James makes more money than Kendall Pope. I'm a Detroit Pistons fan. Isaiah Thomas made more money than John Sally. Isaiah Thomas was a better player. John Sally wasn't as good as Isaiah.
Yeah, I wonder if that, I think we have that in some extent now. Teachers are benchmarked by how well students do on the SOL, and there's a lot of complaints that you're only teaching to that test, and we're trying to move away from that. And is a standardized test, or an SOL for that matter, a good benchmark for how successful that a student or an adult eventually is going to be in our community? How do we measure success as an adult? Is that so that you can make enough money that you give back to the community, that you volunteer, that you start a business and then hire somebody? Like what is the benchmark for success? That you're using less resources that burden the government?
Well, our city teachers can't afford to live in the city.
It's true.
Our city principals are choosing to go to the county for gigs and not staying in the city. We just had one at Buford. The principal left. You see that?
Yeah.
City teachers can't afford to live in the city. They're living in Waynesboro, outer counties, and they're driving in. That ain't right. You know what's crazy is over 70% of the employees in the city of Charlottesville don't live in the city of Charlottesville.
I mean, you know how it is. Real estate here is
obscenely expensive.
Yeah. I mean, residential real estate, I mean, commercial real estate probably has it's maybe a crisis. Residential real estate doesn't seem to have known that the last year was COVID. I mean, it's been impossible to find a house for some people.
I mean, if you limit supply and you 5x demand, of course the price point's going to go up. And that's what happened. People have chosen to leave Northern Virginia, Arlington, McLean, Fairfax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, New York City, Philadelphia. They said, oh my gosh, I had the best 4 years of my life at the University of Virginia. And now my boss has given me the opportunity to be a digital nomad, and I can earn the same big city paycheck, but I can work from an ISP anywhere. Why wouldn't I go to the place that I wax nostalgic about and go to the 4-year place that was paradise?
I mean, the same exodus they're having in California, right? They're going to Austin because it's cheaper to live
Joe
in
Rogan,
Texas. Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, they're taking a lot of businesses in Silicon Valley. There's a mass exodus in San Francisco. San Francisco's having similar problems. People, leaving because of the cost of living. So going back to the commoditization of education, I think moving towards making education a public utility, I actually think that was a good idea. I think it should be a way to provide structure and accountability and the opportunity to educate, to educate everyone. And it's not like Charlottesville High School doesn't put people into Yale. There are students from under-resourced communities that make it there. It's just much more difficult. And I think what we need to do is make that path easier. I don't know how to do that. But I don't know if commoditization pushes that in the right direction because of what you said. It's not equitable. And that's what we need to be focusing on, this lens of equity and inclusion.
Quentin Beckham's been watching for 90 straight minutes. I love you, QB. I love you. Quentin Beckham, real estate. We should make a job where professionals just specialize in helping people buy and sell their home and then only get paid when they achieve that goal. We should make a job where professionals just specialize in helping people buy and sell their home and then only get paid when they achieve that goal. That's what real estate agents are.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the difference, so I've been thinking about this for education, right, is the problem is success is measured over the course of a decade. A teacher who teaches a student in 6th grade the student may not understand that impact until a decade later, or it may be the smallest years later. So your integration period for measuring success is much longer. It might be longer than the average tenure of a teacher. A teacher might be there for 3 years and think, I'm not making any impact. Yeah, I'm going to go work somewhere else. I'm going to go work in the private sector. So I think certainly paying teachers more, but also finding smaller benchmarks that help prepare students for the job world. Again, project-based learning is probably a better deliverable. If somebody can complete a project within time and understand the small steps to get there, is a more useful skill than passing calculus, in my opinion.
See, that's why I want to, and I think you would be phenomenal at this as well. I mean, I think you would be. You are so. I'm gonna embarrass you again. You're so skilled. You're so Renaissance. You dude have so many freaking skills. And he's going to deflect right here because he's a humble guy. But he is a freaking Renaissance man here. That's why one of the reasons I'm running for Board of Supervisors.
Scottsville District?
Is because I want to come in from a mindset of somebody who's had to figure out how to make payroll. I mean, how many times, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, have you ever had those, how long have you been in Claiborne as CEO?
I think I've been CEO 4 years now, but I've been worrying about payroll at Claiborne probably not short after I got into a leadership position fast. And I would say, with the exception of this last year, it's probably been several times a year I'm worried about making payroll.
Okay. So the pressure we feel as the top dogs in the business to keep our staff paid, put that pressure in perspective. Is it any pressure you've ever felt like that before? People relying on you every other Friday to pick up a check, to pay their mortgage, to feed their kids, to keep their lights and their electric on? That's pressure like I've never felt before. And when my back is against the wall, and my back has been against the wall so many freaking times, but when your back is against the wall to meet payroll, you start learning things about yourself. You learn how to innovate. You learn how to be creative. You learn how to freaking think quickly and act quickly and get some pop, some proof of performance immediately. And I think that is what's missing from a lot of local government and elected officials. They're coming in from this mindset of activism, or this mindset of volunteerism, or this mindset of we'll figure it out, as opposed to someone who literally has people relying on him or her for their mortgage. And that pressure keeps you up at night. I don't want to speak for you.
Yep. Yeah, I think the point you're making is, as an entrepreneur, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Like if you're like, okay, I'm going to be $10,000 short, I have to.
What are you gonna do?
Because, like you said, I mean, everyone's stress. It's not to trivialize anyone's stress. Everyone's most stressful moment is
unique to them.
Is unique to them,
and it's their own right.
Yeah, I would say as a business owner, what you're really doing is you're integrating everybody's stress, and so your stress now is the integration of all of your employees' stress, because you can't let them down. For me, I'm like, okay, well. When I'll figure out how I'm going to make rent after I figure out how I'm going to make my employees rent, right? Like maybe I'll pay myself last. I'll do
or
something.
May not pay yourself at all.
Yeah, I won't pay myself at all. I'll call if I have to make my own rent. I'll see if I can call somebody and borrow some money, right? I'll try to figure something else out. So I think that mentality, like the sort of necessity is the mother of invention, that I think that does a lot of times only happen in a free market system, because you don't there. With the exception of this last year in like PPP funding, there's nowhere to get money that isn't very expensive.
There's no money tree.
No. You go to you can't get money fast. If you're worried about payroll next week, you're not going to get a bank loan in that period.
And then why isn't that mindset integrated into education? Can you imagine if that mindset was integrated into public education?
Yeah, so if think about this. If you paid teachers more, if you were a teacher and if they got paid a lot, and I wanted that job,
you get more talent.
I would be saying, look, if Jerry missteps at all, I'll step right into his position. I'll be ready to go. So
instead, you got this hierarchy where whether you're good, you're bad, you're piss poor, you're excellent, you're going to get, is it 3%, 2%, 4%, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is messed up.
Yeah. I think...
Why would anyone strive to be excellent outside of the character that's inside them?
It's sort of this weird... I think it's this weird dichotomy that the people who end up as teachers are not obviously doing it for the wealth. They're doing it because they love it so much. And aren't those the people that you should be rewarding, right? They're only teachers because they love it more than anything, and they really want to help students. You should be rewarding that. They're not going to go somewhere else. They're not surfing around for other jobs. They're invested in the kids' future. And most of these teachers, they volunteer after hours to help these kids be successful. So I think we need to think about, or we need to sort of recalibrate, what is that benchmark for success for a teacher? How can we get them excited about getting these students to reach success? But how can you do it in a time frame that doesn't mean, oh, he graduated from college and got a job and now he's giving back to the community? That's a decade-long process.
This has been one of the best interviews we have ever done. I swear to God, I sincerely mean that. It's 2:07. We've gone, good night. We've got 97 minutes.
Goodness gracious, man.
97 minutes.
How do we make it this long?
Because of you. Because you're a dynamic conversationalist and you're able to adapt on the fly. I'm throwing you real stuff and you're answering it honestly and poignantly, and you are a dynamic conversationalist. It's because of you. I do this every single day. Do you think I go 97 minutes every single day? No. It's because of you. And the first time you looked at the clock, you were like, what? It's this time?
Yeah.
It's because of you. Ben D'Alessandro says, government officials don't have to think like that because they rely on unlimited tax revenue. That is why more private business owners like you, Jerry, should be in public political service. Thank you for saying that, Coach. He also says, so many public officials just think increased taxes and not having their back against the wall. I mean, from my standpoint, and I said this, increased taxes is a regressive tactic that negatively impacts our citizens living on the financial margin the most.
Absolutely.
That's called gentrification. And that's how communities become rich and affluent and not eclectic in thought, in finances, eclectic in background. I want to do this. This gentleman is launching the Future of Education podcast, and it's going to be as dynamic, if not more, than this episode right here. Episode 1 is with Juan Diego Wade, Wednesday, April 14th at 12 p.m.
Boom. Yes. Future episodes. We have somebody from UVA, somebody from St. Anne's, somebody from Tandem Friends School. We have somebody from Henley Middle School. I'm going to reach out to Rosa Adkins. I've met her a few times through Leadership Charlotte, so if anybody knows and wants to make the connection. I'm trying to get multiple different viewpoints on what is what have we done well? We focus so much on and we have today, oh, what's going wrong with the education system? We've done some things right. So let's focus on what we've done right, think about the growth areas, and then we're going to fast forward. What do we want our education system to look like in 20 years? Let's just say that up front. No wrong answers. Okay, great. Back that out. What do we do now? Kind of like the questions we got today. Great questions. Like we got from Quentin. What do we do now to make that education system that we want in 20 years? That's the premise of the podcast, and I'm trying to get a bunch of different viewpoints.
The premise of the podcast, I don't want to assume, so that's why I'm asking, is let's not be reactionary. Let's be visionary.
Be proactive. Yes, absolutely.
A couple suggestions. Businessman to businessman.
Great.
You should do that podcast on this network. We would massively enhance the exposure of what you're trying to say.
Let's do it.
Massively enhance the exposure. You'd be streaming to a lot more channels. And then you wouldn't have to worry about any of the production. You could just come here and be Lee Elberson. The second thing is, honest. You don't want to go toe-to-toe with this show at a 12 o'clock slot. Ours goes at 12:30.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
Honestly,
I'm just throwing it to you.
Yeah.
I'm a competitive free market guy. Baby. I'm just throwing that to you. You don't want to go toe-to-toe with this show. And then I'll close by saying this. You, are super legit. And, we are so, sincerely mean this, lucky to have you in Central Virginia. Not only from an education standpoint, but from the advice that you're giving and the counsel and the consultation that you're giving to so many business owners. You don't know how many times I hear your name come up in the course of a week. I'm not bullshitting you here. I hear your name come up all the time. And it's from people like Scott Williams. It's from people are saying, this guy gives so much of his time, his resources, he's so knowledgeable, he's willing to volunteer, he's willing to give back. People say this to me all the time, Lee. And because we have them on the show and we're talking, and inevitably the CIC comes up, in a lot of ways, you're like the Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees, the Lee Elberson of the CIC. I sincerely mean what I just said.
I really appreciate that, and honestly, it's almost leaving me at a loss. I'm really just glad I can give so much to the community, and I am always looking to give more. So if you're a business owner and you want help, contact CIC or contact me, and I'm happy to help. And I think we have a great community. We talk a lot about some of the problems, and I think once you're in office, I think that you're going to address some of those. But there's a lot of great things that we've done too, and I think your show brings a lot of these entrepreneurs. One of the things I love about your show is that I will suggest an entrepreneur to you, and then you'll have them on and give them an opportunity that they would never have.
Every suggestion you make, I'm like, dude, Lee suggests it, let's go. You, carte blanche for you. I swear to God, carte blanche, any suggestion you make, because I trust you. You wouldn't put me in a bad position. I trust you. And if you make the suggestion, the person's coming on no matter what.
Appreciate that.
The jersey swap.
The jersey swap, yeah, man.
This is our I Love Seville, our flagship right here. And this is the Claiborne flagship.
Claiborne flagship.
Is that next level? What do you got over there?
We got. Well, you're gonna see this. Oh yeah, this is next level.
I know T-shirts well.
Oh man, yeah.
So this is a Gildan soft style. You can save a little, and enhance your margin if you go with the Gildan soft style.
I'm not trying.
I know you're not selling it.
I want people to wear this. The most important thing is get something comfortable that people will wear, man.
It was a joke. So my friend Lee is. You said you were a large.
Yeah.
I told Lee that I'm a medium.
Medium, yeah.
That's the
I couldn't
small
find
medium.
that. Maybe Gildan makes those. Next level doesn't make it. It's like you got to pick medium or small.
I'm vaccinated. How are we going to do the jersey swap? Are we going to just? I'll do whatever you want. We've been staying 8 feet apart from each other the entire interview here.
I feel comfortable with you, man. I got my first vaccination yesterday. I don't get my next one until a couple weeks later. So let's do this, man. Love you. Right?
I love you.
Love you. And now I get to wear my shirt.
I'm going to wear this right here. Claiborne, baby. This is medium.
Is that medium?
Yeah.
Because I have a small. See?
Bless people. Lee Elberson, guys. You got to get on. Why is Lee Elberson not on Facebook?
That's a long story.
How often do you get that?
I get that quite a bit. Yeah, I had an issue with the stalker, honestly. And
okay.
yeah, I haven't gone back. I have it for my business, and I've been thinking
Fair
about
enough.
starting another account just for ways to connect.
Well,
again.
to drop knowledge bombs like you do here on social, I would be like, for more knowledge bombs like this, follow Lee, but they should go to the Claiborne Education page where the podcast will be hosted. Right?
True.
The future of education.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. He is the CEO of Claiborne Education, the CFO of 8 Hats, the chairman of the Community Investment Collaborative, and the chairman of
The Better Future Foundation.
the Better Future Foundation, a nonprofit you launched.
Nonprofit I launched, yes.
Yeah, this guy's all around good people, and we just spent nearly 2 hours having real conversation on the network, guys. You had a total of 13 states watch you today. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Network. We will see you tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. with Real Talk, presented by the Yes Team Realtors and Yes Realty Partners, a show about real estate. And then tomorrow at 12:30 on the I Love CVille show, Rico Hearns and Chris Doman on the show. That's an interview you're not going to want to miss. You guys have a good afternoon. Take care. Dude, I was fired.
Wow.
Did you have fun?
Dude, that was so much fun. Man, I cannot believe when you told me the time. I was just like, that's no way.
Did you have a time? Yeah.